Intel continuing their surge this morning, up better than 7% at the moment after the company posted another record quarter for revenue and raised its full-year outlook. I spoke with Intel CEO Bob Swan late last night on those results, why he's calling it the best quarter in the company's 51-year history. Take a listen.
Everything was stronger than we expected this quarter. So if you think about where we were simply 90 days ago, we had a view that the quarter would be roughly $18 billion. But we closed, as you indicated, $19.2 billion, $1.2 billion higher than we expected. And we saw strength across the board. It was the best quarter in the company's 51-year history. The data-centric collection of businesses, which you know is a very important part of our growth story, set records. DCG was a record year. A record quarter. Our memory business had a record quarter. Our IoT business had a record quarter. Our Mobileye business had a record quarter. So we really saw very strong growth across the board as we went from Q2 to Q3. And because of that, we raised our full-year outlook by $1.2 billion. We took earnings up and we raised our cash flow outlook by $1 billion as well. We're on pace for our fourth record year in a row, so we feel good momentum going to the second half of the year.
I also asked Swan more about that upbeat guide, particularly in the face of tariff uncertainty, and where his level of confidence comes from.
The confidence really came out of the $1.2 billion higher in Q3. And as we tried to dissect where we saw the strength coming from and what would continue through the rest of the year, we do think there was a little bit of pull-ins from the fourth quarter into the third quarter. So while the fourth quarter will be stronger than we expected, we do think that we had about $200 million worth of pull-ins. But we still expect the fourth quarter to be stronger than what we thought back in the July timeframe.
Intel shares initially popped as much as 9% after hours on those numbers, dipped down quite a bit from there. Now it's up 7%, which is about the highs of the after-hours session, pretty close. Interesting detail in there about the pull-in that he saw from Q4, he thinks, to Q3. As we start to parse whether or not there's going to be this IT spending slowdown, you wonder, well, can we look at cloud names like Amazon, like Microsoft, and see hints of that? Can you look at Intel? Ordinarily, I think you can look to Intel, but the fact that they're so supply constrained in their chips, they haven't been able to deliver the supply that the OEMs want. It's not clear to me whether you really can look at Intel as a picture of demand then, because if demand were to slow, boy, they still don't have enough supply even to meet demand if it were slacking a little bit. So we're going to have NetApp CEO George Kurian in just a few minutes. He is feeling the pain of some kind of a slowdown. Maybe we'll get more info.
I was going to ask you, how can you have a Texan and a 3M in the same week as you have an Intel and Lam Research, right? You can forgive people for being confused about the cycle.
Yeah, it is very confusing, especially because when you look at Goldman's call on the slowdown, they said a lot of it had to do with sentiment. So, you know, we just got some news from Kayla Tausche that sounds like, well, maybe these talks with China are going a little bit better. Is that going to impact sentiment? Will CEOs, will purchasing departments start to buy again in IT spending? I don't know. There's something going on out there, particularly with those core names like your NetApps, like HPE, like Cisco. I want to hear more about it. I'm not convinced that it's just sentiment quite yet.